Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in beautiful Los Angeles, California. I hope you're all happy, healthy, and having fun today. Today on Critter Chat, we're going to talk about an amazing group of animals that has captivated people's attention for quite a long time because they're pretty bizarre, really unique, and have some amazing adaptations for their habitat. Today, we're talking about chameleons. Chameleons are a family of lizards with unique adaptations, and they're found primarily in Africa, with some species also going into the Middle East, Southern Europe, and over as far as India and Sri Lanka in Southern Asia. There are over 170 identified species of chameleons, with more being discovered and identified every year. So it's still a group of animals we're still learning a lot about. About a third of all known species live on the island of Madagascar, which is off the coast of southeastern Africa. Madagascar is also home to the lemurs, so check out that episode of Critter Chat if you missed that, where we talk a bit about Madagascar more in general. Chameleons are found in several different types of habitats, from forests to deserts, scrub lands, savannas or grasslands, and up into the mountains in multiple areas where they live. Typically, if they live in a place that's more lush with more foliage and gets a lot of rainfall, they're going to be more of a basic green color for their main coloring. If they're going to live in somewhere more dry, like a desert or in kind of a grassland, they're typically a little more brown coloring. But as we know, chameleons are famous for being able to change their appearance and their coloration. We'll talk more a bit about that. So in this family of lizards, they have some very unique adaptations. We're going to talk about all of those as we go through. First, let's start by talking about the biggest chameleon. Is called the Parsons chameleon, and it measures 27 inches in length. So it's a big guy. It's a good-sized lizard. The smallest, there's multiple really small species, are less than an inch. And there's some as small as they could sit on the end of my thumb and barely make it to both ends of my thumb. One of those is called the Brookesia micra. It's so small it doesn't even have a fun, cute name. It just has a scientific name. It's also one of the more recently discovered species of chameleons. So let's talk about some of these adaptations that these crazy animals have. First, let's start with their eyes. If you've ever watched a chameleon up close or even seen like cartoons or videos of chameleons, you may have noticed that their eyes are a bit different than most other animals. For starters, the shape of their eye is more like a cone. And on those cones, that's their eyelid. So it surrounds everything with a hole in the middle for the pupil, or the middle part of their eyeball, to see out. And these cones are on each side of the head, and they can rotate and focus independently of each other. That means their right eye can be looking forward and their left eye can be looking back at the same time. Because they're kind of narrow-headed and their eyes stick out from the side of their head, and they can really rotate them a lot, it gives them full panoramic 360-degree vision, which not a lot of animals have. So it's really a great thing that they have been able to develop. Typically, as they're moving through their forest and hunting for food, as they spot something, both eyes then focus on wherever that prey item is, and that gives them really good depth perception. That's what we need for, you need two eyes focusing on the same thing to give you good depth perception, and that enables them to be successful hunters. Chameleons typically are hunting during the daytime, so vision is very important to them, and their eyes and their ability to move them independently definitely helps them find their food. In addition to their eyes, there are some other great features though, one of which is their feet. Their feet can grab hold of things, kind of like our hands with our thumbs, except they're arranged a little different. So their front feet, they have 5 digits like we do. And it's these 3 are grouped together and these 2 are grouped together. And with that, they're able to grab hold of things and kind of hold on to the branches as they move through the trees. Now their back feet also have that ability, but the digits are switched. So on the back feet, it's the 2 inside and the 3 outside. Kind of interesting that they have that adaptation, but they're able to grasp with all 4 feet, which makes them really great at being able to climb through the trees and bushes of their habitat. Really amazing ability that they have to grab hold of things. They are a bit slow moving, and they're often very steady in their approach to moving, taking note to fully focus and grab hold with their branch as they move through the trees. In addition to their hands being able to grab hold, many of the species, especially the larger species, can grab hold with their tail. When that's capable, it's called a prehensile tail. That's the word scientists use to describe something that can grab hold, especially tails, prehensile tails. The little guys, like the ones that can barely cover up my thumb, they don't have that, but they also don't need it because they're so little, so lightweight. They don't need that extra support as they're climbing through the little trees looking for their favorite food. Now, most of the chameleons, they eat insects. Almost all of them will eat insects of some type. Some also branch out and eat a few other things. Some will eat some fruit or some other parts of the plants. Some also eat things bigger than insects, like other lizards or possibly small birds. But to eat their food, they have a very special tongue. A tongue is one of the things that really makes a chameleon unique, and their tongue is super fast. They've clocked it, and it's actually 13 miles an hour for most chameleons, which may not sound that fast, but you've got to remember their tongue's only moving a short distance, so that's really quick for a short distance move of their tongue. Since they kind of move slow, they have a very fast tongue to help them catch their food. Their tongue is typically sticky, and at the end is a very specialized muscle of their tongue that can kind of flex and form into a suction cup. So as they grab their food, it kind of grabs hold, and then they recoil or pull back their tongue into their mouth, and their strong jaws help crush their food. Again, mostly eating insects, on occasion going after some bigger things like birds or other lizard species. Probably also some things like frogs and other things that would be around up in the trees. Typically they do live in trees, not all of them though. So one thing that chameleons are best known for, and maybe is their most impressive, is their color changing abilities. This is a pretty complicated process, but I'll do my best to try to explain how it works in a way that kind of made most sense to me. If you've ever seen a chameleon do this, it's pretty phenomenal. It's fairly quick to adapt its color changing, and its color changes for multiple reasons, which I'll go over in a minute as well. To my knowledge, they're one of the highest functioning animals that can change color, as far as like they have a skeleton and a more developed anatomy. Octopi and squid and cuttlefish can also change color, but they are non-vertebrates. They don't have bones. So typically scientists kind of pile up animals in higher functioning abilities kind of correspond with a skeleton. So more developed, I should say. Octopi are very smart. They're very good at cognitive ability. But a chameleon being able to change color is very important to them. It helps them for camouflage, for both avoiding predators and also sneaking up on their prey since they're a bit slow moving. But it also can be a reflection of their mood. It can help communicate with others of their species. Specifically, if they're looking to breed, males get very bright colors to attract potential mates with the females. Females can also announce visually through their colors that they're pregnant or that they are gravid, having eggs, and that they're not looking to breed because they've already done that, which is a pretty interesting situation that they can do. So they're color changing. They can't absolutely blend in with everything. If you put a chameleon on like a red and white polka dot tablecloth, it's not going to turn into red and white polka dots. They don't have that ability. They don't have that need. Out in the forest or the grasslands, the mountains, the deserts, they don't deal with a lot of red and white polka dot in a meticulous pattern sort of thing. But they can blend in with things that are very important in their natural surroundings. So that's mostly a lot of greens with different colors to reflect the light showing through the forest, and also things like flowers, tree branches, the mottled color of bark on a tree. All of those things are more what they're able to blend in with. To do this, they have 4 layers of skin. So starting on the furthest outside layer, that layer of skin is called the epidermis layer. We also have an epidermis. Epi means outer, dermis means skin. So the epidermis is our outer skin. But for them, that's their protection. That helps protect the rest of their body and definitely protects the other layers of skin underneath it, as well as it's a clear coating. So it really helps to protect without impacting the brightness of the colors that they're able to showcase on their under layers of skin. So the second layer down is called the chromatophore layer, not to be confused with the Chromatica, which is Lady Gaga's new album that just dropped today. That's something totally different. So the chromatophore layer on a chameleon really focuses on yellow and red pigments. And as you know from learning about colors, if you mix yellow and red together, you get orange. So that enables them to control other colors. The next layer down, so layer 3, is called the melanophore layer. This is where the dark pigments are stored. This helps them to create things like brown and black, and it also reflects blue. And if you add blue to either red or yellow, you can then make either purple or green, and that helps to control the different colors. The 4th layer down is called the nether layer, and that reflects white. So adding white to anything lightens up the other colors. If you add white to red, that makes a pink color. If you add white to blue, it makes it a light blue. So they're able to kind of control which color zones are showcasing, and that helps blend a different variety of color palettes that can help them to camouflage, or like I said, announce to other chameleons that they are looking to breed. So these layers of skin and the colors within them are controlled by nerve impulses and hormone changes that can cause the different color cells to either expand or shrink. And that combination of the colors creates the patterns that we see. So if they look striped or spotted, which they can change, they can do that by moving around their colors, controlled by their nervous system and also their hormones if they're looking to breed, or if they're a female announcing that they are already pregnant. So I mentioned that they do this for camouflage. They do this to communicate with others. They also can do this to announce that they're pregnant, but they also can change colors for a very important thing. As a reptile, they're ectothermic or cold-blooded, and they rely on outside sources to help heat their body. So if they wake up and they're cold, they usually will turn a darker color and then sit in the sun. And that darker color helps to absorb more of the heat from the sunlight, and then that helps warm them up faster. Similarly, if they're sitting in the sun and then they get too warm, they can turn a lighter color, like almost white or a very pale green, pale brown, and that will help them to cool as lighter colors kind of reflect the heat a little bit more. So their color changing ability, although it's kind of most talked about as being camouflage, can be used for multiple different reasons. So let's talk a little bit about babies and baby chameleons. So most babies come from eggs, and most the chameleons, if they're a little species, they usually only lay like 2 to 4 eggs. If they're a big species, they may lay near 80 to 100 eggs, and they can sometimes lay eggs like 3 different times in a year. Now, depending on the species, some of those eggs will hatch like 4 months later, and some of them will incubate for a very long time. There's a species called the Parsons chameleon, and that's one of the biggest species. They think that its eggs incubate for 24 months, which is crazy. That's 2 years that those eggs would sit typically underground or under some leaves. And kind of the babies are forming inside those eggs that entire time. They'll typically lay their eggs under the ground. They'll dig a little hole, and then the eggs actually absorb moisture from the ground during that time frame. Mom is nowhere around. She lays the eggs, she's out. And then when the babies hatch, they look like the adults, but they're able to move around and find food on their own from the beginning. Now, not all chameleons lay eggs. Some chameleons keep the eggs inside of the mom, and they hatch inside the mom, and then she gives live birth to the babies. Typically, those are inside her for a gestation period of between 4 and 6 months, which is a pretty long time for a fairly small animal. But those babies are ready to go as well. Once they hatch, they're on their own, or once they're born, they're on their own, and mom kind of leaves them around to do their own thing. Now, with many of these species being in Africa and many of them living in forest loss or habitat destruction is a big threat to many of the species. It's estimated that about 35% of chameleons are threatened with being endangered, vulnerable, or critically endangered, especially the species that live in Madagascar. And they think that there are at least 3 species that live on Madagascar that may be extinct. They still need to do a little more scientific research to look for those species to see if they are totally gone, but it is very possible they may be extinct. Madagascar is its own country. It is a country that has struggled a lot. They have a very high poverty level for the many, many people that live there, and they are looking to make some money to try to help the people. And so they unfortunately are cutting down their forest at a very fast rate to sell to the rest of the world for lumber and for paper, and also to grow agriculture, to grow crops, to raise cows, all those things to feed the people that live there. So it's a very complicated situation. It's something that is affecting other animals in Madagascar as well, like lemurs and many of the birds that live on the island as well. The other big threat for chameleons, because they're so interesting and cute and kind of slower moving and they're not venomous, another big threat is that they are collected for the pet trade. They're very beautiful, so many people think, oh, I want this very beautiful animal to come live in my house. Unfortunately, many of the species are very difficult to take care of in a captive setting, so they're a very tricky pet. If you're trying to have a pet chameleon, they are not always very easy. Some species do better than others, and some species that are exhibited in zoos are some of those easier species. I do have a friend who is an animal expert. He was a zookeeper for a while at one of the zoos I worked at, and he has chameleons at home, and he has successfully bred several of the species that he has as pets. So it can be done, but you have to really know what you're doing and have a very good setup and be very meticulous about monitoring things like their humidity, their food intake. They prefer to have running water. They don't want like just a water dish. They want water that's circulating. So they're very tricky to maintain. I wouldn't recommend them as a pet unless you've done a lot of research into them. So be cautious about that. Also, if you decide to get a chameleon as a pet, please research where it came from. Was the specific animal you're getting, was it hatched or born in captivity, or was it collected from the wild? That's sometimes a tough conversation to have, but it's an important one, as collection for the pet trade is one of the major threats facing chameleons. As far as people doing conservation work, there's not any one organization doing a lot to help chameleons out in the wild because they are spread out over much of Africa and parts of Asia and Europe. There's not as much collaborative effort going on to help chameleons in general, but there are some places that are protecting habitat, and that would be what I would most recommend moving forward as ways to save chameleons, is protect the forest or the desert, the grasslands that they live in. By protecting bigger animals, things like apes or monkeys, lemurs, rhinos, elephants, any of those animals that we can protect through big area protection of the land will also help out chameleons and other smaller animals that live in those same habitats. So that is a good way to support protection of wild populations of chameleons. My experience with chameleons is pretty limited. I haven't done a lot with them. During my time at the Los Angeles Zoo, when I was training to be a zookeeper, I did work alongside the reptile keepers, and they had a chameleon, and I was able to feed the chameleon one day, and it was really amazing. The way that worked is we had really long tongs, pinchers, that we would pick up a cricket and hold the cricket into the chameleon's exhibit and kind of move the cricket around a little bit. And they were live crickets, but we would kind of make sure that it stayed put so we could count how many the chameleon ate. And then whoop, with his super fast tongue, he would flick the cricket out of the tongs, and you could feel it really pull on the tongs as that happened. It was super fun to do and really amazing experience. If you live near a zoo that has chameleons and want to watch that happen, check in with the zoo if you ever talk to one of the zookeepers and see when they feed their chameleons, because it is super entertaining to watch them eat. They are expert hunters. I've also seen, as they moved that chameleon that I fed, when I was feeding him, he lived off exhibit because his new exhibit wasn't built yet. And once the new exhibit was built, I saw them, they would just dump some crickets into the trees in the bushes where he lived inside his exhibit, and then they would kind of watch and see how many crickets he could get. But it's super impressive to see how they feed. I have also seen my friend's chameleons who keeps them as pets, and it was amazing to me to be able to see them up close and personal. Chameleons are not the most people friendly, so it's not like I got to hold them or play with them. They don't really enjoy that, but it is very amazing to watch them. It's especially great to see them if they're in a big habitat and can move to different areas within their habitat that would maybe reflect some of those different colors, and see how they move or change color as they go around. The chameleon at the LA Zoo lives in an exhibit with some branches up above, and on the ground is kind of a sandy colored dirt floor with some little tortoises, and the chameleon sometimes comes down to the lower level, so it's green up top and brown down below and mixture in between, and it's really cool to be able to see that chameleon change colors. I'll be posting some really great photos and other information about chameleons later today on the Facebook page, so check those out, and also some videos. I've seen a video of a chameleon giving birth. I hope I can find that again and be able to share that. It's pretty amazing to watch, and it's pretty cool to see how quickly the little guy's up and moving around in that weird-handed chameleon way that they do. But I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today about chameleons. As always, feel free to like, follow, subscribe, and share any of the Zoo Nerd content across Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where this video is uploaded daily, and also on the Jeremy the Zoo Nerd website, which there's a link on the Instagram and Facebook profile. You can easily click over to see where all of these videos live, and check out some more information that I'm uploading to the website fairly regularly. Until tomorrow, take care, be happy, be safe, have fun. All right, see you later.